Ron's 4 fingers were broken continuously, and he almost passed out with pain. However, he was overjoyed when he saw that his little brothers had already swung their swords in front of him. "Are you breaking my finger? Then I will let my brothers chop off your fingers." Charlie didn't care about it, just a dozen gangsters, not enough. When he was about to do it, an angry shout suddenly came from outside the door. "FCK me, stop. Who dares to move Mr. Wade and hack to death on the spot?" A dozen punks looked up and almost peed their pants without being scared. Orville. It turned out to be Orville, the underground emperor of Orus Hill. Why is he here? At this time, Mr. Orville brought his most powerful subordinates, and the various guns of these subordinates were by no means comparable to ordinary punks. After the men with guns came in, they immediately pointed their guns at the gangsters with knives, frightening them all to throw their knives on the ground. One of the younger brothers was frightened and knelt on the ground with a thud, crying and said, "Great Mr. Orville, please spare my life." When he knelt, everyone else knelt down. They are nothing more than a bunch of low-level brothers. In front of Orville, they are like ants, naturally scared to death. Ron was also shocked. What happened? Why is the Master Orville here? At this time, Orville walked quickly to Charlie and blurted out, "Mr. Wade, I'm sorry, I am late." Charlie waved his hand and said, "Let your people shut all these young people in the room first." Mr. Orville nodded immediately and asked the younger brothers to shut the group of people into the next room. Afterwards, Charlie looked at Ron, who was pale, and said with a smile, "I said that the 12 rings are good, and it is only 4 rings now. Let's continue." Having said that, he directly broke Ron's little finger on his right hand. Crack! Ron called out painfully. Mr. Orville on the side said, "Mr. Wade, with this kind of little guy, you can't afford to waste time, so just hand it to me. I will take it to the kennel and let my dozen or so Tibetan Mastiffs tear him directly." Ron was shocked and blurted out, "Great Mr. Orville, great Mr. Orville, this is all a misunderstanding. I am Wise's little brother." "Wise?" Mr. Orville frowned. "Are you with Wise?" Ron nodded repeatedly and cried and said, "Wise is my elder brother, so counting down, I am also your disciple, Master Orville." Mr. Orville observed at him closely and asked, "Do you know whose disciple I am?" Ron subconsciously said, "Great Mr. Orville, you are the underground emperor of Orus Hill. Of course you are not anyone's disciples." Mr. Orville slapped his face, pointed at Charlie, and said to him, "I am Mr. Wade's disciple." "What? Disciple, not even the little brother." The famous Orville said that he was the disciple of this young man. In other words, he was extremely humble in front of this young man. Ron was trembling with fright by this relationship chain. What's going on? The second aunt asked him to calculate Lady Wilson, and asked that Lady Wilson's son-in-law to ask for a villa. Didn't expect that the other party was Mr. Orville's boss? Leanne also frightened her legs and weakened. She observed at Horiah pale, and asked in a low voice, "Who is it that you offend?" "You want to kill me?" Horiah was also dumbfounded. She knew that Charlie seemed to be fooling people with feng shui, but I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Elaine was also a little dumbfounded at this time. "Deed, her son-in-law is really amazing. Fudge, so many big people, there is no thunder yet? There are indeed 2 brushes." Ron was already trembling with fright. He said to Charlie bluntly, "Mr. Wade, I was wrong. I was fooled by my second aunt. She said that she wanted to pit your mother-in-law. She used me." Charlie slapped him directly, and slapped his face fiercely, and said coldly, "Before the 12 ringings are over, if you dare to say one more word, I will let Mr. Orville split you into 100s. Ron was frightened by Charlie's fierce gaze, and immediately closed his mouth. Charlie looked at his right hand that had broken 5 fingers at this time, and said lightly, the right hand is still almost loud. Come, get ready. After speaking, grab his wrist and make a violent force. Click. Ron's right wrist was completely broken. Ron's painful legs softened and knelt on the ground with a puff. He wanted to beg for mercy, but when he thought of what Charlie said just now, he dared not say another word. However, this piercing pain has already caused him to collapse. But Charlie said at this time, 12 bangs, this is just 6 bangs, and there are still 6 bangs. After finishing speaking, he bent down and grabbed Ron's left hand. Ron looked at Charlie with tears and dared not speak. He used pitiful eyes and panicked, shaking his head to beg Charlie for mercy. Charlie gave him a cruel smile. Then, grabbing the thumb of his left hand, he said lightly, "Come on, the 7th ring." Ron trembled in pain. Charlie didn't give him a chance to react, and continued, "Come on, the 8th ring." Ron was already in pain and was about to faint. However, the 9th ring revived him. Charlie at this time, in his eyes, is as terrible and cruel as the Shira of HLL. Charlie patted his face and smiled faintly. "There are 4 more rings, don't miss it." Then, there was another click. This disciplinary method of cutting meat with a blunt knife, even Orville feels liver tremors. There are 3 more rings.